Hi, I'm filming this on the 1st of January and it's the most magical time outside. Like it's snowing, full on magical Disney snow outside. So I guess we're starting this year off on a good note. I am here today to talk about all the books that I read in December of 2025. It was a great reading month and I guess we're gonna get into it. I had probably one of the greatest reading months of the year. I didn't know that could happen. I'm quite a harsh critic, but I rated 3 books out of the 8 ones that I read 5 stars this month. And then there's another one that I rated 4.5 stars and another one that I rated 4. So pretty good reading month all in all. I have also 4 extra books that I'm going to talk about that I've started, but I've yet to finish. So hopefully I can make some headway now during January on those. And I don't necessarily have physical copies of my books. I do spend a lot of time reading on my Kindle. This is one of my current reads. So in that sense, there's gonna be a whole lot of photos of the books that I read, mostly because, I don't know, I read better in an ebook form. I can go through books in a faster rate. I don't have enough space in my apartment for physical copies. However, I love them. I love reading a physical book. It's just limited space. But let's get into the books that I read, shall we? I started off the month by reading Lord's Foul's Bane by Stephen R. Donaldson. This is a fantasy book that came out in 1977. It follows this man, Thomas Covenant, who has sort of been shunned by society due to having leprosy. He is really cynical, he really struggles in life, and one day he's magically transported into this other world where he has to start this adventure, either to get back to his own world or wake up from this dream, as he calls it. I think this book is for you if you enjoy anti-heroes and kind of like the old school fantasy vibe. This does remind me a little bit of Lord of the Rings in the sense that there's a group of characters traveling to this far off place in order to stop evil. I actually started reading this book back in my teens. My dad always talked about the series as one that he really liked, but there's this thing that happens in the beginning of book 1 that honestly just put me off from the whole story. I think if you do go into it, you should read your trigger warnings. However, it did come back to me all the time. I took a course on monsters at university. It was a pretty cool course, and it came up as a case study there. I always thought I would end up giving it another go, but maybe when I was a little bit older, and I think now, being 34, it was the time. After getting past that thing that happens in the beginning of the book, I ended up enjoying it, and I will definitely be continuing with the series for sure. It does feel very dark and grim and cynical at times, and you're not supposed to like this character, the main character Thomas, very much, but somehow the book has stayed with me. I really liked the environments, the mood, the vibe, the setting, the kingdom that they travel through. It was very atmospheric, and I feel like the end of the first book doesn't really leave you with a good conclusion. And I guess since it is part of I think there's an original trilogy, and then there are 3 more books that came out at a much later time, but I definitely wish to return for sure. Next up, I read the final book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, written by Layla Sage, Wild and Wrangled. I love a good cowboy. I really, really do. It was not until this year that I realized that you can actually read romance books about cowboys. I have not been a huge fan of romance, but this was a game changer for me. In this final book, you get to follow the 2 characters, Cam and Dusty. We have followed them throughout the previous 3 books as well. They have popped up. Cam and Dusty used to date in high school, but had a falling out, and we don't really know what happened when we start the book. Because I had gotten to follow them in the previous 3 books, I think I was just genuinely so excited to get to see their love story. As you can see, I gave this book 5 stars, and I don't know if this book alone is 5 stars, but I think Layla did such a great job in building these characters across the 4 books, and the final one just felt so good to me. I was so sad to have to leave them behind. I want there to be endless cowboy stories from the Rebel Blue Ranch. I just enjoyed it so much. It was like one of those series where I Could have easily just read them all in 2 days or something, but I just had to savor it and read them slowly, even though that was almost impossible. I did end up crying, which I also didn't expect, but I guess this has been the gateway romance drug for me, and I'm so excited to read more cowboy romances. Obviously, from a literary perspective, it's not the most profound thing you've ever read, but it is fun. If you know where I should go next, are there more cowboy romances out there that you think I should read? Please leave me a comment and some recommendations. I am dying to find more lovely cowboy stories, to be honest. The third book that I read this month is A Fever in the Heartland by Timothy Egan. This is a non-fiction book. I felt I needed to learn about something new. This book tells the story of KKK's rise and fall in the US, starting somewhere at the beginning of the 18th century up until about 1920, 30s, about there. The book is sort of marketed as the story of the one woman that took this entire terrible organization down. And I went into this thinking, yes, I love an empowered woman, but that's not at all what this story is. KKK was an extremely violent group. This talks about their violence against people of color, Catholics, Jews, and women. I cried while reading this. It was really rough to get to. It's actually funny how many books this month made me cry. Almost all of them. What happened to this woman is actually what ended up being the organization's downfall. And it was a truly heart-wrenching situation and story. And many of the examples and the stories given throughout the book are. And I kept thinking to myself, did a woman actually take down this organization, or was it just because she became a symbol for something else? Because of who she was, this kind, sweet white lady, then some of the crimes that KKK, or especially the head of the KKK, somehow became visible. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think it was a very difficult read, but I also kept thinking how much has really changed, you know? It's not so difficult to see parallels from things that are happening in the US today and what this book highlights. It was very interesting to me to see that some of these ideas that I, as a Swede, find difficult to grasp have been around in the US since the dawn of the US, essentially. This book left me feeling educated, which was the goal, right? I was able to look at the world through the lens of things that has happened in the past, which is always a plus. I think you should definitely read this. The fourth book that I finished during the month of December was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series, although technically fifth if you do count Assassin's Blade, and I do think you need to have read Assassin's Blade to get certain parts of this book, so I guess book 5. I listen to these books as my audiobook picks, and I've been doing so for half of the year. I have enjoyed it so far, but I haven't really thought it was that great, which is kind of interesting how I've really wanted to return to these stories, but then as I'm listening, I'm either bored half of the time. And I think Sarah J. Maas does this. You're like really bored and you're bored and you're bored, and then suddenly you're screaming out loud because there's a plot twist. And she's really great at putting a lot of action in the final listening hours of the book. And for this one specifically, Queen of Shadows, I was on the edge of my seat. I think I scared a lady in the subway because I kept gasping. It was riveting, I think. And I don't think I can say much about the plot. I'm gonna end up spoiling stuff. The Throne of Glass series, if you've never heard of it, is this YA series, fantasy series where this assassin goes on adventures. I don't know. I feel like you can't really describe the plot in a good way without spoilers. What I can say so far is that out of all the books in the series, this really kept me entertained actually more throughout the book than the previous ones did. And I like that she started sprinkling in action, major action, earlier on in the story. I'm not sure if I am a big fan of Sarah J. Maas's writing style. I don't know, sometimes the concepts and the people that she introduces, I feel like we should have known about them before, and I'm always so confused. And I don't know if this is a me problem or if it's just the way that the books are written. However, I do love Manon Blackbeak. She's like the best character so far. I gave it 4 stars because I thoroughly enjoyed that ending. Like, that ending had me at the edge of my seat. And I don't know, I guess that's what Sarah J. Maas does good, because at the end I always want to continue reading the next one. Then I picked up People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I finally read an Emily Henry book. I know that when you're scrolling through Book Talk or whatever, her name pops up a lot. I was full on obsessed with this. I honestly can't contain my obsession. I did this as a tandem, so I both looked at the ebook or read the ebook whilst I listened to the audiobook. Whenever I couldn't read, I was counting down the hours until I could pick this book up again. Suddenly, nothing mattered more to me than this book. I don't know why I got so incredibly obsessed. At one point, I thought I had gotten on the wrong bus, and I was initially freaking out a little trying to look how to get back home, and it was telling me like, oh, you're gonna have 1.5 hours until you're home, which I was like, what? How did I do this? Turns out it wasn't the wrong bus. However, I was genuinely a little bit excited because that meant I spent 1.5 hours more with this book. I guess I am a romance girly after all. I didn't know this about myself, but I guess that's true. I resisted it for so many years, but now I guess I will have to read all of Emily Henry's book. I just have a feeling. I also have had this obsession, full-on obsession with When Harry Met Sally. I watch it religiously once a year on New Year's Eve, and I have done that since I was about 14 or 15 years old. Emily actually mentioned during her acknowledgements or the final part of this book that she took inspiration from their love story. I didn't realize throughout, but it makes so much sense why this book in particular was such an obsession for me, because I love that type of love story where it's like someone that has been around for a while and then you realize you love each other at the end. Oh, I just love it so much. I didn't actually talk about what this book is about, did I? In People You Meet on Vacation, you get to meet these two characters, Poppy and Alex, and you see their friendship span across multiple years as they go on vacation together. I think the book does dialogue really well. It's really witty, it's really funny. I loved the characters. I just didn't expect it to be as funny as it was. No surprise, I gave it 5 stars. I cried at the end. I was on a bus on my way to London and I was like, oh. Like so many other books, this just, oh, it just hit the good spot. It made me cry. It was just, just a good time. And this next book that I read, book number 6, is honestly no exception. This gave me a full-on meltdown as I finished, so I guess sobbing was the theme of the month. This was my first Maggie O'Farrell read. I read Hamnet, and similarly here, I just am itching to pick up more of her books. I feel like at this point you might have come across a movie trailer or heard about this book somewhere. It's been out for a while. It's very current considering that there's a movie coming out, or it has already come out, but in Sweden where I live it doesn't come out until February. Turns out William Shakespeare had a son, or not turns out, but he did. He had a son named Hamnet that passed away, and this book is kind of an imagining of who this son might have been and what that story might have been like. Most of all, I do think it's a story of Agnes, who in this story takes on the role of Shakespeare's wife. It's definitely a story of grief, and it does a wonderful job of really getting you to feel that grief, hence the full-on mental breakdown on my part on Christmas Day also, by the way. The prose is probably the most beautiful prose I read in any book all this year, and I love the book. I highly recommend it to anyone. I spent all the time reading also picturing Paul Mescal as Shakespeare, and he is now the embodiment of my anger, my grief. I'm so annoyed with him. So I don't know, I'm sorry to him, but he's now the embodiment of all of that. I also read this on my solo trip to London over Christmas, and it felt like the greatest pick. Like, I went to afternoon tea and read this little book, or went out to restaurants and read this little book, and it was just romantic in a way. I will treasure those memories forever. Just read Hamnet. And also, while I was in London, I went to the Electric Cinema on Portobello Road and watched The Housemaid. It was the only movie that was on at the time that I had time to go there. I know that this is a book wrap-up, but I have fallen in love with that cinema. I wish that I lived in London so that I could spend every week there, at least. I don't, but It's the most wonderful place. I have a history of working in movie theaters. I used to be a projectionist, like that was one of my first jobs. There's nothing better to me than a nice cinema. It's fantastic. So if you're ever in London, I would recommend going there. I did read The Housemaid earlier on this year. It was like a quick, enjoyable read for me. I don't know. Something about Frida McFadden's writing style is maybe not necessarily my favorite. I just don't necessarily like the characters very much, but the film inspired me to read the rest of the series. I just thought it would be interesting to follow Millie a little bit more, so that's what I did. I read The Housemaid's Secret as my 7th book, and then The Housemaid is Watching as my 8th book. The Housemaid's Secret follows the main character Millie as she is a little bit older. She's in her 30s and is starting this new job with this family who lives in a fabulous penthouse. At one point, she starts realizing that something isn't quite right with the couple that lives there. I really enjoyed the twists in this. It was an incredibly quick read. It took me like, I don't know, a few hours to get through. I still don't necessarily know if I enjoy Millie as a character, but it was enjoyable, so I gave it 3.5 stars. The final and 3rd book in the series, however, did not hit for me. Millie is even older in this one. I think she's in her 40s or something like that. She has kids and a husband, and she has moved into this new neighborhood. I was very bored with Millie as a mother. What can I say? She didn't even feel like the same character to me, and I didn't really enjoy the kids. I didn't enjoy the twists, and I feel like there were a bit too many perspectives in this, where you got the same details repeated to you a couple too many times. I felt like there was also a lot of insignificant details that I just didn't care so much for. The amount of time that is spent talking about Millie's blood pressure, I was just like, what is going on here? Is this meant to? I'm still thinking about that one. Like, what's the point of that? There must be a point. Maybe we're supposed to think that something was going to happen to her. I don't know. However, it was still fairly quick to get through. I will definitely pick up more of Frida's books just to see if it's just Millie that I don't vibe with, or if it's just in general, because I do like that. Sometimes you just want a little palate cleanser and you want a little mystery to just get you excited about reading again, and there I think Frida does a good job. If you have any recommendations of what other books by her I should read, to let me know. And those were all the books that I finished during December. Of course, there are a few books that I have started but I've not yet quite finished. For example, we have We Do Not Part by Han Kang. I'm a huge Han Kang fan. I actually have one of my, like, her books, Human Acts, although I have it in Swedish, but it's signed by her because I actually met her at this book event. That's so cool, I think. I have not read We Do Not Part, so I'm quite excited to dig deeper into that. I'm also listening to the next book in the Throne of Glass series, Empire of Storms. A long, thick book, but I am about 35% into it, and I have a feeling that it's gonna get good at some point. Like you saw here, I am also reading currently Exercised by Daniel Lieberman. This is part of my personal learning curriculum for 2026. I got really inspired by that trend. I've created a learning curriculum that I'm super excited for. Let me know if you want a separate video on that or want to hear more about the curriculum I planned for myself throughout the year. I found that when I was looking for inspiration of what other people were doing, I just found so many videos explaining what a personal curriculum is. There's a lot of value in that, but I would have been more interested in seeing what kind of curriculums people are actually doing. So if you want that kind of inspiration, do let me know. And then also this month of December, I started a book club. Biopic started a book club, yay! If you want to join this book club, we are currently reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Seven. We aim to be finished by January 12th. I will publish a video entirely, like a deep dive on this on the channel, and announce, of course, next month's book pick. There's still some time for you to join in and read with us if you want to. If you want to join, you can join over on Fable. I have left the link in the description box, of course. I'm so excited to just really do this book club thing. I think those were everything, but before I go, I have created and curated a little Spotify playlist. I am a playlist girly for sure. I I do wish to become a spin instructor one day. All I do is like make little playlists for different vibes. I made one inspired by my December 2025 reading, so if you want to check that out, if you want some good new song recommendations maybe, or if you're a playlist girly like me, you can also find that in the description box. I'm honestly so excited to be making YouTube videos again. I feel a little bit out of it, I'm not gonna lie, but I do hope I can create a little community over here. I hope I get to join in on other people's communities. If you do happen to come by this video for some reason or another, please say hi, please let's be friends, and yeah, see you around soon. Bye!